Mrs. Gribble? Ms. Rucker?
Present.
Ms. Bennett?
Here.
And Mr. Henry?
So we'll start with new business. The first on the agenda is 210 Hamilton Street. Can you come to the front of the room? Mr. Blackman? And if you would state your name and address for the record.
Name is Chris Neff. Address is 340 Pleasant View Road, New Cumberland, PA 17070.
Great, Chris, thank you. First, we'll start by Jeffrey reading a synopsis of the report.
Yes, so the applicant is proposing to replace the existing real slate shingles on the third floor mansard roof and dormer roofs with EcoStar synthetic slate shingles. If you've seen the photos in the case report or did a site visit to the property, you'd note that there is a pretty minimally visible mansard roof on the third floor of the front of the building. They'll be replacing the slate shingles there and on the kind of large A-frame dormer there with the EcoStar synthetic slate shingles. This is a product that has been reviewed and approved by the board before. This is not proposing a new product, the visibility of the location of work is pretty minimal, so it's a pretty straightforward proposal. The Planning Bureau staff is recommending the request be approved with the following conditions. The applicant should utilize a similar slate color to the existing shingles, and that's just kind of to maintain the overall general appearance of the property. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The project is similar to other approved proposals for replacement of real slate shingles, and thus there is precedent for the allowance of the alternative materials. And the project involves replacement of architectural elements with minimal visibility and a low profile along the mansard roof.
Open the meeting up to you. If you have more comments to add to the application.
No, the only thing I would note is that we'd be using the fish scale EcoStar, which would mimic exactly what's on the mansard wall at the time. So basically identical. You won't even know we're there.
Thank you, because that was my question. You would add that to the conditions.
Yeah.
The slate would be a similar color, but also similar shade.
Correct. Yeah, it would be. We'll match it up as well as possible. I believe it's going to be a federal gray.
Federal gray.
Yeah, those two that were close, we're going to hold it up and double check.
Now, was that painted, that slate painted with that silvery?
No, that's actually.
It kind of looks like it in the photo that it might have. But...
Yeah, that's on painted slate.
And do you know if it was reviewed as possible salvage of the slates?
It's beyond repair. They're soft, unfortunately.
I know sometimes we've asked the owners to salvage slates for use in the future or donate to different buildings for use. Is that something that we've done recently?
I think there's been discussion of that, but I don't know that, the city manages like an architectural salvage operation or even a facility where this stuff could be stored and then, resold. So I don't know, how we would maybe mandate that or track that. Obviously, it would be preferable to retain whatever shingles are possible for use, on any historic building, preferably in the city, but just because really there's not a whole lot of like new slate shingles being made nowadays. But I think at the end of the day, having a requirement like that or a condition like that is just, maybe difficult to enforce.
We do actually save when we can, because I get in for other slate repairs, I do some of that as well. So, now I don't know if the city would want them. But
No, I
if you
think
take them off and I can save 100 tiles, I actually typically do. Because we'll reuse it in other places, like
exactly.
Harrisburg or Lancaster City.
I That's what we would like to encourage.
Yeah, we do.
Any other comments from the board? Questions? I have a question for the board. Do we want to change the condition or say that the applicant shall utilize a similar slate color, size, and shape to the existing shingles? Or it says color, do we want to add size and shape?
Yeah. Or texture maybe would be a better,
Shape.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess
I don't know if you can get a similar texture, can you?
Well, I think as opposed to like,
Close to
it's,
possible.
yeah, the rough edge kind of
Yes,
one, yeah, yeah.
yes.
The only,
shows it.
It looks like a fish scale, they call it.
Chip.
I don't think it has a particular name for it. I think EcoStar and Da Vinci both come that way naturally. Pretty much all slate you get is gonna have that coarse type edge. They don't finish an edge of slate in one way or the other, if that makes sense. It's,
All right, then I guess I'll make a motion to approve with modified condition.
Second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you for your time.
All right,
Kevin
thank
will follow up with you with the certificate of appropriateness.
all right, have a good evening.
All right, next on the agenda is 227 Main Street. Main Street, sorry. Yeah,
Minute.
yeah.
Absolutely. I was about to say, absolutely not. That is not what that says. Is that really how it's pronounced?
Yep.
That's how it's pronounced. Not in a million years without that.
In Germany.
Name and address for the record, please.
Jessica Barnett, 227 Minnick Street.
Jessica, welcome.
Stefan Ernie, review by Anderson, 590 Wood Lane.
We'll do the same thing, Kevin, can you read the synopsis?
Yes, so the applicant is proposing to replace the existing paneled front door and transom with a half-view fiberglass door featuring panels along with the transom. This proposal, is similar to some other proposals we've gotten in the past for replacement of doors. Sometimes people want to remove like a wood door with a half-view pane and just put something solid in for security reasons, and other times we get proposals like this where it's replacing a solid panel door with a half-view pane. And when reviewing a project of this nature, you kind of look to the historic district design guidelines, which generally discourage the replacement of paneled wooden doors with fiberglass or modern materials because the profile of the panels and the recessed areas isn't quite the same. And in this case, we're adding a half-view pane as well. I think when I went out and did a site visit, I noted that in addition to like this proposal, and this aspect is not relevant maybe necessarily to this particular project and is not certainly the applicant's responsibility, but it appears that a previous owner replaced some of the windows on the property, took 2/2 windows out and put in 1/1 windows. There were some other aspects like a mini split system put in and some other changes to the building that didn't go through the HARB approval, or as far as I can tell, get city permits. And so, when looking at this, I'm looking at it almost as a continuation of that, where the historic nature of this building has kind of slowly been degraded and erased. And so I think this proposal would be kind of a step in that similar direction. And, there are existing products out there like wooden doors, wooden panel doors especially, that could be used to replace this. I think it's, evident it's a wood door when you go up to it. You can kind of see some peeling paint, but the proposed door would be a pretty significant change from the current appearance. And again, because it's right up against the sidewalk and is not set back like underneath a porch or something like that, it's even more conspicuous than it might otherwise be. So for that reason, the Planning Bureau is recommending the request be denied because the proposal to replace a paneled wooden door with a fiberglass door with a half-view pane is not an appropriate or necessary alteration to an existing historically appropriate feature. Because the building does not have a front porch to obscure the proposed change and the location of work is in the touch zone, the alteration will be conspicuous and visible from the public right-of-way. And the applicant has the option of installing a new wooden or wood composite panel door if the existing door requires replacement for either security or energy efficiency reasons.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the application?
If I may, so the homeowner is actually okay with replacing the door, and currently it would have half a glass, and just go back to the 6-panel door as you have. With regards to the previous steps that the previous owner have done, that is obviously not something that she did herself. The only thing that I would like to bring up for your consideration here is her safety and security. Obviously, she has contacted us for the purpose of getting this done because of safety, and not to say anything, about that block or that part of the city, but again, things can happen, and being a single homeowner, that is her main priority. So if we have to go with a full door with a 6-panel, just the way it appears, I believe that we are all in agreement to do so to preserve the historic nature of the block of the city, of the section that we live in.
Just a point, I noticed that there's 3 doors.
Yes, 2 of them would be on the side, so it would not have, it would not affect any type of appearance. It was the front where actually, instead of going a 6-panel solid door, that there would be a half of glass. And she is willing to forego that and just go with a regular 6-panel door.
With no glass.
We know this, yes.
Is there some reason why, given that you would be doing the door you had in mind, you couldn't just keep the original door or the existing door?
It's breaking. There's like holes in it.
It is broke, never mind the inefficiency, obviously from shifting and degradation over the decades, but it is actually what I would say it's a security issue from the crack that it has.
And a new door would have a peephole in it then if you do a solid one.
If that is the board's preference, yes.
Any other thoughts on the half glass versus the 6-panel? Or versus fiberglass? So the 6-panel that you're talking about is a fiberglass.
So it is fiberglass, but the outside structure would be of what would be a composite. So it would have both wood and fiberglass particles in. The necessity for that is not only because our company offers that, but also because of the degradation that the doors, all 3 of the doors have. The previous owner was very good in replacing certain windows, but completely neglected the doors. The biggest safety issue.
So explain that to me again, where's the composite material?
So that would be the frame of the door, because that gets replaced. Our measure, we actually had one of our measurers come out, and he has done a thorough job making sure that everything is going to be the exact size. And again, appearance will be the same. It will be the safest door that is out there. So we are in all steps have been taken to make sure that we are in fact meeting the historic value
thoughts if they go with this fiberglass with wood composite exterior?
Yeah, I saw that in the case documentation that I think there's like a Fibrex core and then a fiberglass outside of on the exterior of the door. I know the board has approved fiberglass doors in the past. I think in some cases the conditions are a little, or the circumstances of the property are a little bit different. Maybe you have a existing vinyl door or existing fiberglass door or something like that, or it's a particular size, and it needs to have that. Ideally, it would be, wood door, but I think if there's a compromise to be made, and it sounds like the applicants are, willing to compromise on the design of it, I think there's some justification for, an allowance of the material. I think in the past, I don't know whether it's this manufacturer or installer or it was another one, but they said that the fiberglass was paintable. So I don't know if yours is or not. So it is paintable, which I know is one of the longstanding issues of every review that the board does is the paintability of the product. And if the product's paintable, I think there's that certainly helps in support of the applicant's position.
Does Anderson do a wood composite door?
What we have is what we are proposing here, that again, there's not a full, the door itself is not a full composite.
Can you make it a full composite?
Well, currently, we are not offering that. But it has been approved in several different areas of the city. Not to be used.
Panel door that with the smaller panels on top and the longer panels.
So that's exactly what you're looking at there. That's what we would have, and that's what she currently has.
Well, I hear that they're willing to replace this there. Material. It does have the lighter panels. Some framing around each of those panels that seems to be in keeping in the imagery.
I move that we accept the proposal with the stipulation that the door be the 6-panel as shown.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. All right. Next on the agenda is 308 and a half South 7th Street. Your name and address for the record.
Bragg Renewal by Anderson, 26 Old Coach Lane, Carlisle, 17013.
Busy
We are.
tonight. All right, Jeffrey?
Yes, so the applicant is proposing to replace the 5 existing wooden windows on the front elevation with Fibrex windows, and the request should, I guess, be modified to note that only the first floor window would be packed out by 1 inch on either side, as noted in the application. As noted in the application, the other 4 windows on the second and third floors, I think, would just be matching existing profile of the window. So in looking at something like this, I know the board has generally discouraged packing out. It changes the appearance and the kind of the profile of the window. In this case, I think we were balancing a couple things. So one of the things was that the applicants noted they couldn't make a product that was the same size as the existing window frame. So that would mean that the alternative would be doing like a plate glass window. So I have something similar in my front, the front window on my first floor, where it replaced a big double hung with a picture window. And maybe you could put, a fake check rail in the middle of that to replicate the appearance of a double hung window. Or the alternative would be, allowing the applicant to install the window as proposed. And I noted that in looking at the window, the check rail is actually somewhat off-centered on the overall window frame, and the proposed window also has that offset to the check rail. So, this is kind of one that I think could go either way. And when considering it, I really thought that maybe the greater contributory element, I guess, would be the offset check rail as opposed to the overall, profile sides of the window. And so the question came down to, well, if we recommend denial or a condition with approval with a different type of window, what would that be? And again, it couldn't be a Firex window or a wood composite window of the exact same size. It would have to be a picture window with like a simulated check rail in it, or it could be what the applicants are proposing. And so while I know the board's position on packing out windows, it seemed in this case like it may be the lesser of two evils when it comes to the replacement of these windows. And obviously, as they're replacing the windows on the upper floors too, you kind of want a continual appearance between all the windows on the property. So it'd be one where I don't know that it would necessarily be the best idea to say, well, we'll approve the 4 windows on the second and third floor and not the first floor window. I think that would be even more conspicuous than, what some of the other options would be. So with that being said, the Planning Bureau recommended the request be approved for the following reasons. The proposed window material is administratively approvable per the Historic District Design Guidelines, and although the project represents an alteration which is discouraged by the board due to the visible impact on the architectural feature, the alternative of a picture window would be a more conspicuous change. Aside from the proposed first floor replacement window, the project can otherwise be administratively approved as presented. And finally, the project will replicate the off-centered check rail between the top and bottom sashes of the existing window. So again, I think, this could have really gone either way, and I'm sure there may be, some indecision on behalf of the board members on which way to go in this case, but the Planning Bureau felt that this was a more preferable option to the alternative of a picture window with the simulated check rail.
Would you like to add any thoughts?
We can make a picture window the correct size. What we were trying to do was match the double hung on the house that's attached to it, like within inches of that window. There's another one on the next home. So the homeowner we wanted to try to keep that. We figured that was going to be an easier approval process than going to a picture window. So it's the overall united edge of that window that's giving us an issue. It's the same thing when we did the picture window at your home. We're talking about a thumb's width on each side. And on a 50-inch wide window, that's going to be harder to pick up on than if we make a picture window with like a simulated check rail. I think that will look worse than like sashes, because it's just a piece of glass at that point, where the sashes aren't offset and that. So the double hung's going to look much better as you're driving by, and you would have a really hard time noticing 1 inch on each side of that window with as large it is.
Can you explain the 1 inch pack out?
So I can make it would be on the width. So I can make the width, but then I can't get the height. I can make the height, but then I can't quite get the width. So were like 2 inches too big on the overall size of that opening. So it was going to look better, because we can slope the sills on our double hungs to match the slope sills of the original windows. It was going to look better to lose the inch on the sides than at the top and bottom. We can finish it nicer
Yeah.
that way, and then on the interior, it has the existing original wood stops. They almost cover most of that pack in, and we're just gonna have a little bit on the inside to touch up on. So, but it'll look much better with the double hung being out front.
So there's brick mold around the unit, right?
Yeah, and that's all staying original. So the homeowner, he travels a lot for work. He knows that there's some woodwork that needs to be done in like the box sills and whatnot. And he's gonna paint that to match, because our color is pretty close, and he's going to paint the wood trim around to match the window, once he gets the wood repair done.
And then what is the full exposure of the sash?
I don't know.
The size of this, the width of the sash?
The overall unit width is going to be,
Just the wood.
the overall unit width is 48 inches wide is what we can make to go into that opening. I would say 3 inches from there to start a glass. I don't know, the sash is 2 inches wide the whole way around. It's very accurate to like original wood windows.
Right, so it'll look like 2 inches on the top, 3 inches on the sides, 2 inches on the bottom.
Oh, you're talking about the border around the window? I don't think because there's box sills below it, so that's gonna blend in nicer. And then at the top, there's more than likely decorative trim, around that window. So I don't think, are you talking about like the profile around the window where we finish off too? That will be, our window is 3 inches from frame to glass, and then we're gonna have about an inch on each side. So you'll have, probably only 2 inches of like finishing material from our window over to the existing trim, and then the rest will be window sash, like sash is operating. Is that what you were looking for?
2 inches on each side, or?
I guess I'm confused on what your question was.
Is that 2 inches on each side or 1 inch each?
It's 1 inch on each side, but then the finishing covers our window frame. So that's where I got, we're gonna use, what we typically use in Harrisburg is, it's called F trim or L trim, and it's made out of the Fibrex material. You'll probably have about a 2 inch wide piece of that running around, but it's covering up a portion of our frame. It's covering up the whole window frame, because it snaps into that. You wanna see some pictures of like before and afters, or? I don't have them of that house, but I have.
Is this material paintable?
Yeah, we've been using it in Harrisburg here for, I don't know, as long as I've worked here, which is 10 years now, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the first couple instances we had were maybe like 2014, 2015, and I think there had been administrative approval starting in like 2016, 2017 or something, I think, was when the board took a vote to grant administrative approval to it.
Did you see details, Jeffrey, of how, I mean, I understand the description of packing out the window, but did you see a detail of how that's done? Make the
I think to, the applicant's point, because it's not just a simple brick mold frame all the way around, and kind of to your point of like, well, it would be 2 inches on the top then and 3 inches on the side, because you have those like chunkier headers and sills, the additional width on the sides is going to be less noticeable because of those bigger blocks on the top and bottom of the window. If it were just, brick mold all the way around and you just like put a window in there, which we have those windows in the city, I think it would the change would be more evident. But I think due to the nature of the existing conditions, I think it'll be less visible. And I think, like I said, at the end of the day, it seems to me that the more, unique aspect is the offset check rail in this window. And so a replacement that can replicate that is probably preferable over something that's just, again, a picture window.
Find an image that you can share with the board?
Yeah, I have a few. You want me to bring it up?
You're welcome to show and tell.
So this is Carlisle, but like same age, right? So we did bottom two windows, top three are still original.
And this is packed out with the one.
These
inside.
didn't necessarily need to be packed out, but there's not a whole lot of difference. And these are much smaller windows, so on a 50-inch wide window, that's the issue. We're talking about a thumb on each side. And there's going to be a width difference between this window and this window just because you're setting inside the existing framing that's already there. Historical district again. Right side windows original, left side replacements. So there's like some slight profile differences, but driving past and seeing that is gonna be much harder to see than if we put a 2-inch wider picture window in. Because the homeowner was trying to match the window that's like 2 feet over in the neighbor's home.
So does
Yeah,
it's easier, but it's
it's very, very close. Okay.
thoughts, concerns from the board?
I like the idea of keeping an operable window operable. I would suggest that, at least from my perspective, I would be okay with approving this, but not having it set a precedent. That this would be a one-time only approval for this particular alteration.
Given the unique condition.
Yeah. So that, a month from now, someone says, well, they did it, and then we have to review each one in instance.
And I do always, inform everybody that, that board decisions are not precedential. They're based on the circumstances of each particular property and each particular project, and therefore approval of a particular material or product for one property is not necessarily going to be given for another. Again, if you're have a door right up to the sidewalk or setback on in a porch. So I do make a note of that, but including it in the actual resolution is, probably helpful to anybody that may want to read that for the future.
Your consensus, to have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
With Connie's recommend, with
Yes.
the addition, okay.
One second.
I have a motion to approve as modified and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. New business, and we have, other business with the Broad Street Market. We continue what was discussed last month, as far as a preview of the project. If we could come forward and, have you state your name and address for the record, I would say. Again?
It should be everything
Okay.
you guys have there.
Yeah, I gave you the PowerPoint and the printout, and I actually have the specifics on the paint and the masonry, I think, from last meeting too, just in case you had follow-up questions about that. But the PowerPoint that you have is the one that they had provided for this meeting.
I think we replaced one of the photographs in there because it was too low resolution, but other than that, it's
love it. Remind us of your names and address for the
Yep, I'm Peter Paulo. I'm from 6608 Norfolk Place, Harrisburg, PA.
Rebecca McCormick, 226 West Market Street, York, PA.
So if there's a, you wanted to summarize for us, Jeffrey?
Not much additional beyond last month's discussion. We did have a follow-up meeting where we discussed some of the feedback that the board provided at last month's meeting, and some maybe additional information that the consultant team may want to provide for this particular presentation. And if you'll note on, I guess, the 7th page of the PowerPoint, they have a kind of comparison chart of the materials that are involved in this reconstruction, some of the major materials that are involved in the reconstruction, roof, walls, windows, doors, and it kind of has a breakdown of what it was originally, if known, what might have happened or what happened in the 1970s when there was a reconstruction project, and then in the 90s during that reconstruction project, which we discussed at the last meeting, and then finally this current proposal. So I think it's designed to help the public and the board understand and kind of track like what's being changed. Is this a change from the original, or is this a change from the most recent reconstruction of the property, and therefore it might be different from what we are used to seeing as residents of the city, but that's not necessarily means it's any less historic or less appropriate than what was there previously. So that's what that chart is designed to do, and I think the consultant team will probably expand a little bit upon that and maybe address some of the other questions or issues that were brought up by the board at the last meeting.
Okay, I just want to make one clarification. I didn't say, I just said it was the Broad Street Market, but the focus is the brick building today. There might be comments on other pieces. I see people from the public who might want to have part of the comment session. So I guess go through your PowerPoint with us. Is that your plan?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll start with page 2. It's some of the historical photos that were previously presented at the last meeting. Again, these are the photos we've been in our research using as datums or checkpoints to go back and to try to tell the story of what was previously there and how the building evolved over time. Same with page 3. Some historical photos. The one to note on the right is the wood structure that was previously in the plaza, and the brick building is the building to the dark building to the right in that image. Page 4 is looking at more of the interior of the Broad Street Market brick building previously, prior to the fire and earlier years. And then page 5 is also some more images that we used in our research. But really, we really focused on the image on page 6. We did reach out to Ken Frew for some more imagery as well, and this was his leading image that he sent back to us. We did learn this image is from 1890 in our research as well. So we'll reference this photo later on in our presentation like we did previously.
So, like Jeffrey was just saying, we did compile a chart to sort of explain the evolution of various elements of the building and what we're proposing. And in a lot of the cases, we are going back to what we think is the original, because in the 70s, they made some very drastic changes. And then again in the 90s, some of those changes went back to the original and others did not. So we are trying to reference the 1890s image with all of our modifications, particularly windows, and we'll get to roof as well, because there's some changes from the last time.
So the next slide is our existing masonry. Not much has changed since the last meeting. The existing masonry walls are two widths, a brick with a void space in between. And there's usually, header bricks every 7 courses to kind of help tie it together, but it needs some stabilization. We're proposing to grout fill the center void, and then repoint both the interior and exterior sides of the masonry wall, and then also give a metal stud wall on the interior side, to help stabilize the wall as well. Page 9 is some other brick issues that we've discovered. Some of the face of the bricks are very soft, so there's deterioration, so we're going to find ways to replace the select bricks if they're in really bad shape, or find ways to possibly put coatings on the brick to help protect them for the longevity of the building. Page 10 is again more of the masonry issues that we're trying to resolve. These images are more of a water issue that's waking up from the foundation up through the wall, and that one's roughly the whole way around the building. It's like around the 3-foot mark. So we'll find ways to alleviate that as well.
You didn't find out what the issue was, why?
So they weren't able to actually scope the downspout. So we're gonna actually, part of the project, we're gonna replace all the downspouts in underground boots, basically. So if that was one of the problems, we were alleviating that. We are trying to get more information from the geotech with the water table. The water table is roughly 10 feet below grade, which should be below us, but there's still concerns possibly if we have a wet season that it might rise up for small periods of time and then go back down, basically. So we're still looking at waterproofing the existing foundation as well to mitigate that.
We are, I think we talked about this last time, we're removing the slab inside so we can get to the foundations for repairs from the inside. And now basically all of the sidewalk along the north and south side will be coming out for replacement of infrastructure and utilities. A foundation drain will also help,
That will help.
drainage so that the water, if it does rise, it can drain more quickly and doesn't get absorbed into the brick.
Is there any weeping in the wall? Are you gonna add any? It has a little bit of a cavity.
No, and we're actually gonna fill the cavity, so we're gonna put a membrane on the interior side of the wall, but we're not looking to introduce any more leaves to it. And slide 11 is that portion on the left hand of the tall window on the first floor, and then the window right to the right. We're basically proposing to rebuild that section, because that's the section that's going out. So they'll dismantle it, use it, clean the bricks, and then put it all back together with the sand bricks as well.
Or we're all on the same page, which is this image on?
So it's these two, and then on the following slide, you can see the bowing.
Right, I would, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Southwest corner.
Sorry, yes, the southwest corner. And then the interior elevation is just showing some of the notations that we're calling out in the construction documents of things that need to be brought up to stabilize the interior portion of the wall. And as we discussed last time, we're looking to replace all the wood accents with true wood in the same profiles that were previously there. Okay, and then the next slide is our 1890 photo. It says 1907, but that's actually a typo. It's 1890. And the next slide is an example of the door replacement and transom replacement that they did in the 90s. And you can see that they made the transoms taller and the doors shorter. So we're proposing, as we alluded to to last month, to take the transoms up to the original height and make the doors, larger as well. And then the next slide is,
I'm sorry.
yep, no problem.
The doors currently don't have glass on them, right? So they're solid panel. Now, they were solid panel in the 1890s, and we're continuing to go with solid panel.
There's glass inserts current, like
So-
prior to our project.
This was the 90s replacement doors, which were not authentic. Didn't look like they did in.
So we're gonna go back to the solid wood doors, on the exterior. It'll be on the east and west elevations. There's a 6 panel that was used in the 1890 photo. And then on the on the north and south elevations, it's a 4 panel, because it's a lower elevation for the door.
I think that's the right thing to do historically, just logistically with all the traffic that goes through those doors and how quickly the current doors open into someone else. I don't know if you've given any thought to how you might.
Well,
address
we're proposing to have the interior set of the vestibule doors to have the panels, like the top panels of the 4 panel will be actual glass, so you'd be able to see in that way. And then the other thing too is, because originally the doors were outboard, and there's like, you can kind of see in the transom and door slide that I referenced in the 90s, there's kind of a recess for the doors, that we're gonna have that as well, and that's more for the door swing, so they don't open out into the sidewalk.
Right.
So we're proposing to keep that, and then the paneling system that's on the doors will then mimic the woodwork, in the surround, basically.
The east and west entrances will have ADA push buttons, so that will also help with flow of traffic, held open for a amount of time.
Thank you.
And the next slide, slide 17, is just it's the photo from the 1890s on the left-hand side, and then what we're proposing proportionally, to remake in our, new project.
So the slide that has various images is just illustrating the changes that were made over time. So in the 70s, they actually broke the transoms into 2 separate pieces. The lower piece of the transom was operable, the upper piece was fixed, and they actually recessed the lower transom with the door. And then in the 90s renovation, they tried to go back to how it was historically, but we still think they didn't quite make it match. So you can just see the evolution. We're proposing what we feel is the closest match to how it was in the 1890s. And then getting to windows, we are looking at the bigger windows and also taking those glass slates proportions back to how they were historically. So in this photo, the 1990s renovation, they changed the proportions of the lights, and we're working with Marvin to do a different size muntin at the middle of the windows, because we think originally they weren't able to manufacture or install the window as a single window because it is so large. So that middle muntin will be a wider profile to mimic the original. We did bring window samples today because we do want to continue the conversation of the aluminum clad windows. We also brought a sample of a composite window. We have learned from Marvin that they cannot manufacture the first floor windows in a composite. They're too large. But the other issue with the composite windows is that they can't get the crisp, clean lines in the composite material because it's extruded, like you can with the aluminum clad. So this obviously isn't the exact window we're proposing, but we wanted to show the materiality. We talked a bit about the simulated divided lights. So this is what we, this muntin is 7/8. We're proposing 5/8 for the muntins. And the divider piece will be blank, which doesn't reflect light like this one shows metal finish, and you can see it more because it reflects light. So these are the composite windows, and you can see the lines are just not as crisp and clean. This one's a little dusty, but
No dust allowed.
we have some details in the next sheets that show we've been studying all of we don't have any original windows to reference, but we are measuring all of the replacement wood windows that are there, which presumably try to mimic the original windows, but also just the proportions and the size. We have the check rows, 1 in 7/8. But we have all of these, we're starting to dimension all of the pieces to get as close to what we think the original sizes would have been.
So which is which here?
It's hard to tell. I mean, we still feel that the aluminum clad is the way to go with, it will be pre-finished with the Kynar finish as a 20-year warranty. The city is saying that it's not cost that's the reason behind it, but it's maintainability. If we went with an all wood or a wood composite, you can't get the same finish, and they would have to be repainted regularly, which is becomes a very big expense for the city, but it's also like every 3 to 5 years. Now proposing fully operable double hung windows. So Marvin has a hardware that they can lock the window, so it can only be operated with key, which means it can still be operated, but somebody couldn't just go around and just pull up the windows. So
But
that
you
is-
need that ventilation in there. That's why I mentioned
Well, the building will be climate controlled, though. That's the thing. Like, we probably don't want people opening the windows when the AC's on or the heat's on. Or
it. But they have ways to make the air go off if they open the window.
And, well, in the event of, like a really foul smell or something, they went on the maintenance people could go in and open the windows. We're not proposing any screens, though. Any screens. It really would interfere with the appearance, we feel, of the windows from the outside. They would have to be on the outside of the windows.
So the operation would be very limited, not by people in the market, but only by maintenance people.
And that's the first floor or the clerestory as well?
It would be both. So, these details, we're still developing these details, but we have met on site with the Marvin rep and the manufacturer to discuss, and the masonry, people to sort of discuss how the windows are gonna integrate into the existing building. We're not modifying any of the masonry openings. We talked about last time that we are replacing all of the sills, which had been replaced in the 90s. They don't quite fit the openings properly. So we're proposing a precast sill. I think, if there are any questions about the details, we can look at that more closely, but we did put dimensions on all of the added rails. We pulled a couple of precedent projects that were approved by the National Register of Historic Places. So one is the 1887 American Brewery in
Baltimore,
Baltimore.
I didn't see that.
So it's a similar era of 1887. We're in that range a little bit earlier, but all of these windows were replaced with aluminum-clad wood windows. They were all custom made by Marvin, which is also who we're working with. And that was approved. This project's on the National Register. The next precedent is a project in York, the Laurel Rex Fire Station, also very similar era. Aluminum-clad custom wood windows by Marvin were approved for this project, also on the National Register. I feel like these are two precedents that are very close to the conditions that we have, although I think these windows are even more ornamental than what we have. I like it. The front that was missing from our reprint was the piece from the.
I think we see it, just get the window over here and jump down to the details.
I think that's probably not in there.
Yeah. Do you have that one or no?
Yeah, we do. It's right before the
Sorry.
dimensions.
I thought I added it after, but, I mean, we did find this on the National Park Service, the rehabilitation guidelines, did state that, for example, on certain types of large buildings, particularly high-rises, which this is not, but, aluminum windows may be suitable replacements for historic wooden sash, provided wooden replacements are not practical and the design detail of the historic windows can be matched. So we do feel that we fall into that category. Then, unless there's questions about windows, we'll move on to the paint analysis. I think we talked about last time. We did take 23 samples from various locations around the building for paint analysis. There were only really 3 on the exterior that were usable paint samples because there was so much charring on the paint that a lot of it was not usable. But these are the 3 colors that we did find through paint analysis, and we put together some images of what we're proposing for the paint scheme. We also talked a little bit last time about the historic train station in Harrisburg as a precedent image for the paint colors, going away from just all white trim to a more colorful palette. The next building is another project we did in historic Gettysburg with similar, more colorful paint around the windows and trim details. So we presented several different options for different color palettes using a lot of the same colors from the paint analysis. We presented it to the market board and the small group that we meet with, and everyone agreed that option 1 was their favorite, which is what we're showing here. We are proposing that the fixed doors be painted a solid color, whereas all the doors will be used by the public would have a 2-tone palette where the raised panels are a lighter color and the stiles and rails are painted out the darker green.
And just for clarity, where's the red going? Is that on the brackets?
So that's the downspouts in the gutters, and then also there's an aluminum piece that's at the top of, you can see on the east elevation, at the very top, and that's kind of, we look at the 1890 photo, and it looks like it's mimicking more of the brick tonal. So we're trying to get it more tonal with the brick, so it blends in like it previously did. We're okay with the paint. If there's not any questions on the paint schemes, we also did look at in more detail was some comments, we were proposing possibly an asphalt shingled roof. But going back and reevaluating it, looking at some historical buildings, in Harrisburg and York, I think we agree that, a more, fitting, roof would be, to go with metal roof. It would leave a longevity of 35-year life expectancy with the roof, that would outlast the asphalt shingles as well. So we're working with Engbert, series, 1300 series, roofing, replacement for the project as well.
What's the difference in the cost?
We're still working on the cost, but we think on the it'll work itself out, I think, on the lifespan of the actual metal roof, to be honest. Oh, we did have a meeting today, actually, that it would probably be around double the cost, upfront cost of it, but once maintenance and things, it wouldn't be as bad, basically. And we were proposing to do a light color that were in the color schemes, like a more, light gray or silver, from what we believe, was previously there.
And we're working out the details, but we're trying to find the smallest standing seam profile because we think that's more authentic.
And then we updated this section, so the last time there was that weird condition once you got past the exterior where it kind of dove down, which we're not able to achieve with a metal roof. So the red lines on the lower roofs there are looking at minimally changing the pitch, because we need to get 6 inches of continuous insulation, to minimize the impact on the fascia piece. We understand that we're gonna have to grow the fascia a little bit, but there's ways I think we're gonna be able to cleverly hide it. There's a wood fascia piece, that goes against, the brick and then the gutter system, where we think there's 2 courses of brick that would be able to lift it up to help minimize the impact of, the fascia growing, because of the 6 inches of roof insulation we need to add. And then the old photo there was just showing, the round gutters and downspouts that we previously had and how they're painted to blend in with the brick. That's basically our presentation. We do have a site plan if we need to talk about anything as well. That's the last slide.
I just have one question. I was in a meeting recently where someone asked about the brick and where were you able to determine who manufactured the brick, if it was locally manufactured or anything like that? That was
We have not
curiosity
yet,
more
no.
than
We were actually they're removing bricks. They're gonna, send out to actually test the brick as well. How many is there? 18 bricks I think we're sending out. So there's 6 from each section, basically. So
Each of the 3 additions were used different bricks, so the bricks are different sizes on the exterior for the 3 different phases, and on the interior, they're also different. So it's not likely they did not come from the same batch. They may have come from the same manufacturer, but they're different.
we're hoping to have that information soon.
All right. I'm impressed you're testing the brick, first of all, so that's a good step. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to go through your last slide there, the site aerial. Do you have comments on that, or?
No, it was just, if there was any comments that we needed to talk about the site, we just included it there.
Well, what is the scope of work on the site for the brick building? You said you were talking about you're taking out the concrete floors to get down to foundations, so people should expect to see a lot of, you're capturing the downspouts, so people should expect the sidewalks are gonna disappear for a while,
Correct.
and then they'll be replaced.
Yep.
And for interior of the building, I understand with the HVAC systems, you wanna just kind of disguise the equipment itself, right? You're putting that subgrade.
No, that's starting to evolve right now.
Right.
So there is not gonna, what's being proposed right now, there's not a central plant below grade. We're proposing, to put a chiller, pack system, which would be in the parking lot. It would be the south, east corner of the center parking lot here. There's a small, like, concrete section there. We're looking to carve out a section for the chiller and then find a way to shield it. Basically, be above grade, possibly a masonry wall or some sort. We're exploring it now, and then the chillers would be fed below the street, and still feed the brick building and the stone buildings as well.
We were never going to be able to get the chiller fully below grade. We were always trying to find a house for the chiller, but now we know that we can get the pumps and all the other components of the chiller on the same skid. So that basically left very little equipment to go in a subgrade vault. So we're now moving that into like the upper area of a mechanical room within the brick building.
A loft area.
Mm-hmm. It'll be an enclosed space.
But you won't need any louvers on the exterior of the building?
We're still working on that. I think there'll be some, but minimal. There'll be minimal.
Our engineers are saying one louver, and there happens to be a window on a shorter window on that side.
We don't have a photo, but there's one on maybe on the north side. But there's a masonry wall that in the interior side that kind of splits it. We're on the east side of the masonry wall, and the opening is on the west side. So we just have to figure out a way to penetrate the masonry wall. If that's the option.
That'll be on the first story, or that would be?
It'd be on the first story. There's a high window. I don't have a photo of it with me, but there's like a higher window that's not the full height. That's the whole way around the first floor.
It's different to begin with.
Yeah, it's basically like the transom, but it doesn't have a door beneath it.
I know we have members of the public here. Had comments you wanted to bring up to our attention. Again, we were looking at the brick building specifically today. I understand that to be the first phase of possible future, multiple phases to this project. So, Jeff, did you have comments you wanted to? I guess procedure is name, address for the record.
Jeff Stewart, representing Star Harrisburg, address 3507 North Front Street, Harrisburg. I serve on the task force. It meets every other Tuesday with the architects, and I've been very impressed. I just want to say that for the record. The way in which the architects have approached this project, both with respect to being diligent with historic photography, paint colors, and other attributes of the project. So I just wanted to mention that from my standpoint, I'm not speaking on behalf of Historic Harrisburg, but from my standpoint, I've been very impressed. The only other question is the State Historic Preservation Office is also, I think, in the process of reviewing these plans, and whether or not there's been any feedback from them in that it is a requirement based on the federal undertaking with some block grant funds involved here that does kick in that review from the state. So I don't know, Jeffrey, can you comment on that?
I don't believe I've received anything yet. I don't know if the project team has.
So we did get a preliminary review letter, and it was only based off of our schematic design submission, so they haven't seen the development of the design, so we need to have that conversation with them. But they did make the same comment that you guys did, that their preference was for a metal roof, which is, we've made that change. Had a couple of interior comments focused on the interior of the building, but I don't think that their comments were really any different than what we had discussed with you guys last month.
Just in support of your metal roof, which I'm really glad that you've made that change. I did a little research too, trying to find some information and could not find anything on this building in historic newspapers, but they were building another new market in 1872 on Market Street, and they were using a metal roof on that building. So I think that you're on the right track.
I think I also understand that metal roofs have been used at Fort Hunter on some of the building restoration projects up there. So there's precedent for buildings of that period. Just an observation. But again, it would appear that the State Historic Preservation Office is in the process of review, and hopefully it'll be positive. So thank you very much.
What's the maintenance on a metal roof?
Minimal, to be honest with you, compared to the asphalt. The life expectancy, like the wood finish, they're saying 35 years.
That they want, that they want.
We're going with a lighter color, so it'll have a high reflectivity and less prone to fading than a darker color.
Yeah, that's what I was, because they do fade.
Yeah.
So do they paint them over, or how do they maintenance?
I think you can paint over it, but with the
How
kind of,
often does that have to be done?
well, the finish warranty for the kind, is it kind of? It is 35 year for the
Okay.
finish.
Painting, oh, for the finish, okay.
I think there'd be some fade, fading would be inevitable, but minimal compared to, I think it would be like more chips and things of that nature.
Any other comments from the public?
Josh Kessler, city resident, also in Millworks next to the market. I think these guys have done a fantastic job. I came tonight to pick a fight on exterior buildings that might be built in the courtyard and on the end. But I went through their plan. I support all of it. I think it's very thoughtfully done. The aluminum cladding on the windows is very historically appropriate, maintenance free. The metal roof, you can touch them up with touch-up paint if necessary, if you get a hailstorm or something like that. So, it's a little more on upfront costs, first costs, but longevity, is an ongoing issue with the market. So I'm in full support of the proposals, pending any other changes with louvers or other things that might come up. I would, advocate any conditions on modifications from here on out, but just want to offer my support. Thanks.
Julia James, 1327 William Street. I just wanted to second your comment about glass in the doors as someone who's not quite tall enough to reach the glass that was in the doors, and having been bashed by those doors on many occasions with people coming out, I think having a way for people to see each other coming in and out is a good idea.
So what are the steps now for getting a certificate of appropriateness? Where do we stand?
So I don't know.
Is there a full application at some point?
Yeah. So I think, the formal COA application is not being filed as part of this project, which is why this was introduced under other business. That was a recommendation of the city's law bureau. So from here, I guess the board, if you have any last comments that you would like to make, any statements in one way or another, to express the board's feelings about the particular project. But I believe there wouldn't be a formal COA resolution to go to city council, although city council will of course be getting this documentation. They would be voting on various aspects of, I'm sure, contracts and stuff like that. So this will be going to city council in some form. That is correct.
That's my question, Jeff. Why doesn't it require a certificate of appropriateness?
So I'm not sure that it doesn't, but the reality is that city council is going to ultimately get this, right? So essentially, if you guys did it, you're step one, right? City council, it always essentially goes there. So we're just making sure that if you guys have any questions, comments, that was the presentation, that's what that was for. I guess it's turning on now. But essentially, again, as Mr. Knight said, if you guys have any questions, comments that you would like, put that on the record. Obviously, we let Jeff know. It'll get to city council. But I think something of this magnitude, right, essentially, we want to make sure that city council is the one who is sitting down making the decisions for this.
Do we want to make a motion to approve or deny or, or modify or whatever? So the city council has something to act, some recommendation to make.
If I do have a question first. So there's going to be federal funding, which is why he was talking about SHPO, which means there's a Section 106 process that you're going through. And so there should be consultation. And I'm wondering if it's to have a member of HARB as a consulting party.
There's nothing actually to like move on.
Right.
There's no like application in front, so there's nothing for the board to actually like take any action and do at this point.
I think your comment was a little different, right? Your comment was in the national review
Yes.
scope.
Because they're using federal funds, they have to do what's called Section 106 review, which requires you to have consulting parties, people who are interested parties to attend and talk about the project. And I'm wondering if, shouldn't there be someone from HARB on as a consulting party? And if so, how does that happen?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether that
It's a
would
city
be,
question, it's interested parties. It's not, the city doesn't get to decide that necessarily.
We would disagree with you.
Yeah.
Very
I've been
clearly.
a Section 106
That's fine,
consultant.
but we own the building, we own the property, we owe the money, we have the insurance policy, we have the applications to the city. The city will have everything to say about it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying the city doesn't have anything to say about it. I'm saying that a consulting party isn't just by the city.
I got that part, I'm just saying, but how it goes forward, there's many, many parts to this thing. So we have an insurance company to answer to at the end of the day. Federal money, what's here will be a minuscule part of the entire thing. And which phase it's in will be an issue that's still not resolved.
Minuscule or not, if you have federal funding, you have to go through this consulting party process. I would just suggest that if there's an opportunity, that maybe the president of this board should be a consulting party.
And we haven't quite gotten to that step
Yeah,
yet
exactly.
with
Uh-huh.
PHMC.
Yeah, but when SHPO is starting that review, then that's when you'll start to come up with consulting parties, and that's when I think Trina should be included in that. Well, I mean, you would be the most likely. Assuming you're still.
Right. No, I think position rather than the name is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no.
So are there comments that we want to move forward, give to them to move forward? The only thing that I see as maybe divergent from past discussion is the window material being aluminum clad. Otherwise, we had asked for the metal roof. We just talked about the brick. They keep doing the due diligence on other aspects. Bruce, you had a question, I think, on
Yeah,
insulation.
that's a question. Last month, you gave a short synopsis. It was shingle, and you had something about the insulation buildup. Now that it's metal clad, is it?
That's what I was trying to allude to with the red line that's there. We're trying to change the profile a little bit to minimize the fade, but it's still, the 6 inches of insulation is still going on the roof and not below.
Because current energy code requires continuous installation if, yeah.
So we've got wood doors. We made comment about ways to help the swing of the doors and protect them in and out, just because traffic can get heavy, and hopefully it will again.
And excuse me, are there still gonna be two sets of doors at each entrance?
For all the public, there's gonna be like more of, there's some back of house for just for vendor specific that will be painted out the dark color.
Okay.
But that won't have vestibule, but we don't need it for energy code.
Any other concerns with any of the materials or application that they're proposing? Okay, well, on behalf of the board, we really appreciate all the due diligence and the information you provided to us both last meeting and today. And wish the committee luck, and yes, I agree, if we can be of any use to the city and to you in the future, please let me know.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think we need a motion to adjourn if there's no other business.
I'll second it.
Right, I need a motion to adjourn.